We all heard of kids and teenagers being at risk, meaning that they are either dangerous to themselves or others. Even though there are institutions or schools built to handle them, yet sometimes there are situations that reach a boiling point. Names have been changed or omitted for legal reasons. Here are 3 true behavioral school stories. Story number 1. In some behavioral schools with religious ties, they would perform worship, both in the morning and at night, in their respective dorms. Usually most of the students are in the living room, as long as they are mostly behaving themselves. Worship usually happens before either leaving the dorm for the day or going to bed at night. There was a student named Eric who was in trouble, which I can't remember the exact reason, and was placed away from the others next to the back door and in the same room with the washing machines. He was facing the kitchen, and to the right past it was the living room, where the rest of the students had worship that night. During worship, everyone was really into the discussion, including the staff, when someone noticed that there was a smoke-like mist coming into the living room. It took a few seconds to register, and one of the staff told the students to immediately leave. As we all ran out of the dorm in a hurry, a young child at the age of 9, named Mickey, was lost in the mist. And since the lights were off, he couldn't find his way out. Mickey would have suffocated if not for Gerald, another student, who came in and got him before it was too late. When the dust eventually settled, we all came back inside, and one of the staff figured out that Eric used the fire extinguisher to try to suffocate as many of us as he could. The staff told all the students to grab what they needed, along with bedding and toiletries, and bring it to another building nearby, since the chemicals made it dangerous to sleep there. The staff moved Eric to a different place, separate from us, because they realized that when someone is pushed far enough, they won't care about the lives they ruin or take. Story number 2. So there's a behavioral school that, for legal reasons, I'm not going to name. The school's philosophy was based on the research of B.F. Skinner, which was about rewards and punishments. If one was a good student and did what they were told, they would get independence, which meant no staff escort and little to no supervision. When one was misbehaving, they would lose their privileges, requiring more supervision, put in restraints during transport, etc. A person's behavior also determined which house you lived in. During my 3-year stay at this institution, I noticed that there were all types of students. A few who were as young as 7 years old, to those that were in their 40s and 50s. There were people who were retarded, or the term which was used was low-functioning students. The students who had no brain damage were labeled high-functioning. Each classroom and hallway had cameras, which at most was 2 to a room and a phone for the staff watching the students, and others watching the cameras to communicate, ask questions or permission, etc. The students had to get permission to get out of their seats, in addition to using the bathroom or getting water. I even heard that at least one person has died there. I also heard that there were low-functioning students who were once high-functioning, but after being there for so long, their minds had degraded. I knew a guy that left and returned to the institution, who would have conversations with himself and would barely bathe. One particular instrument that was used on the most aggressive students was JEDs. If a student showed any aggressive or terrible behavior towards the staff or had to be restrained one too many times, they would get put on jeds and moved to another room, where similar students were placed. Jeds were devices strapped to a student's arms, legs, and/or torso, and carried the batteries in either a fanny pack or a book bag. When a student was caught misbehaving, the staff would open the case containing the controls to the jeds and would speak clearly for the camera, stating the reason why the student was getting it, then activate the controls to send an electrical shock to the student's body. Some would take it and others broke down in tears. There was also a seat that would go over the chair and would set the jeds connected to it off if the student got off the seat without permission. An example of the jeds being used was when a low-functioning student who was older was misbehaving by waving his arms aggressively. The staff member found the controls to his jed and told him that he was getting a jed before pressing the button. The poor adult was restrained by a staff member by his arms, and as he received the jolts to his body, the worst part is that the staff member didn't hesitate to press the button that he knew would hurt him. Story number 3. So at the same school from the previous story, I personally wasn't present for this story, but I heard about it from the person that lived through it. A bit of context. When the staff get a call from those watching the security cameras for when a student exhibited bad behavior that they missed when they weren't looking, to help the staff execute the right punishment. In one of the houses where the new or bad students lived, the phone received a call from an unknown person thought to be those watching the cameras at that time. The caller pointed out 2 specific students, Jake and Tim, ironically on jeds, as students who had exhibited misbehavior, which the punishment was getting shocked. The staff brought the 2 students out of their rooms and informed them that they were going to get shocked, which confused the 2 because they did nothing to deserve it. Their jeds were activated and they received the shocks, but it wasn't the end, just the beginning. The staff constantly pressed the button with at least a minute spaced between them. The 2 students were restrained and begged for the staff to hang up the phone and call them back when the amount of shocks went past 20. Tim fought off the staff and tore off his devices, as Jake was forced to keep his on, trying to endure the pain. Eventually, the staff hung up the phone, and once word got out about that night, the staff members had to deal with administration. It was revealed that no one watching the camera made a call to that house. All the staff who were there that night were fired. The 2 students were taken off of jeds with a note saying that they weren't allowed to go back on them again. They were also given a bunch of privileges, and Tim signed himself out of that institution. Jake used the opportunity to get a special phone with direct access to one of the admins and move into a house where the well-behaved students lived.